Hello viewers, well the state of play for Gran Turismo 7 took place yesterday. I'm not going to put up the clear video, instead you're going to have a video of me talking about it and just giving some initial impressions. And at first I'm just going to go through the video in the background and my various thoughts exactly as we go through on the process. Now I ran this as a stream at the time with some initial thoughts and a deep listen to it. And now I'm going to have some reflective thoughts on it as well, the good and the bad. For those that have watched the channel, you know I'm always critical of all things, but it's because of the resource and the opportunity that Gran Turismo has had to be the best game ever, and to look at what's new here on Gran Turismo 7 as we look a little bit of Trial Mountain, the new brighter lighting on the rock faces there. I've mentioned before about the tracks lacking a little bit of life to them. This is one again that we'll come back to later in the video. I'm actually quite disappointed with some of the changes made to the circuits, and I'm disappointed with the changes made to Deep Forest as well. There's definitely a little bit of soul lost in the tracks, and here we see a bit of Brazil. To average Joe, you would be hard pushed to notice the difference between this and Gran Turismo Sport. At this point you're kind of looking at it and feeling like it's a new lighting model on Gran Turismo Sport. That's not a bad thing, because Gran Turismo Sport is the best looking racing game on the PlayStation console. At the same time, we can see that it's an evolution rather than a revolution in terms of updates and changes. As we see some of the cars going round, it already looked great. The menu screens again are built upon the excellent menu screens of Gran Turismo Sport. At times you would like to see a change, if only for change's sake, but away from that it's nice to see. Now we've got the locations and layouts. I don't have the numbers on me from Gran Turismo Sport, so I don't know how many are new. Not as many as I would have liked. I've certainly not seen enough of the older tracks. Nice to see all the traffic. I wonder how that element comes into it when you're racing around, in terms of perhaps seeing traffic on other roads. Nice texturing, bump mapping, all the rest of it on the track surface. And we're looking at a little bit of the world map now, which is in 3D. Doesn't need to be in 3D. I always quite like the stylized cool 2D originals, but if you want to have 3D, that's fine. It brings it up to modern day, and as long as it all works, it's functional and it's chilled and relaxed. We've got these new cutout faces of characters. Not keen on these, actually. I don't think they really add to the style of Gran Turismo. There was something quite calming and distant and unusual in the vibe of Gran Turismo menus. It was just that cool jazz, and now I've got these, for me, slightly irritating face cutouts popping up all the time that feel completely unnecessary to the gaming experience. On to the Sunday Cup then. We see the nice pit lane details. It certainly looks more detailed than before, and it's all running beautifully. I'm assuming we're looking at the PS5 version. Menus again, obviously built upon Gran Turismo Sport, so doesn't look quite as new as I would like, but nice to see the progression. And I like this, all the upgrade rev type tachometer session there. Then we're looking at the cafe now. Again, we've got a couple of characters, and of course these are the chaps who built the cars. Now, this is different to the random characters in the game. They wanted to give a personal approach. So rather than just looking at the car, look at the soul behind the car, which is the designer who worked on it and put it together, and learn a bit about the history of the car. I think it's nice for people to learn a bit of the history. Probably something most of us won't even take a look at unless we have to, but it's nice that it's in there. I think automotive heritage is important, but then so is gaming heritage. I feel sometimes that gets lost along the way as well. So nice to see the automotive heritage there. And I don't have a list of how many cars are new, but Gran Turismo, we've all played it a lot, and it's getting into the nitty-gritty of the main mode, I think, and building your car and bonding with your car. It's going to be important. And again, this is another aspect of learning about the design and what car is for you, what car manufacturer do you vibe with. Cars are all about a vibe, and see a bit of history as well. And this is only a good thing for people, especially as we move on and cars change, and a lot of these things we take for granted. If you've been a car fan for the last 25, 30, 40, 50 years, however old you are watching this video. I think we see it all in our lives, but to young people today, these are all really old, which makes me feel old. Brand Central, nice little shopping mall there. Again, the unnecessary character will pop up onto the screen, I don't know. And we have a little wander around, which is nice. This has kind of got more of a test drive vibe to it now. Walking around the shops, as you do. And the menu screens are, again, just straight out of GT Sport. Why bother? It was nice anyway, and they still look fab. I've got no problem with that. Having said that, I always think when you're making a new game, it'd be nice to do a hue change or a font change or something to make it feel a little bit different. All of this feels a bit GT Sport. I'm never really going to look at any of that stuff, if I'm completely honest with you. Museum, lovely, lovely museum. There it is. Look at old cars. If you just want to sit there, you don't want to play Gran Turismo, you just want to read Gran Turismo and look at pictures of cars, you can do that. You know, whatever's rings your bell, I say. And it's good to have it in there, not taking anything away from it. I like that the work has gone in, but for me it's completely unnecessary, and I will never look at it. I just won't. I'm all about the racing. If there was a racing history section, a racing heritage, that would interest me more. Or perhaps if we were learning how to build the car in some way, that would be a whole different game. You know, if we actually had to learn how an engine worked, or learn the basics of the old engine and get that working, I think there would be something there to make it worthwhile if you actually got points from basic learning and development there. So again, here we see these irritating characters popping up. That's going to forever... For me, it's not for me. I'm sure you guys watching at home are thinking, Alan's moody. Old man with grey hair, moody about the game. No, it's just not for me. Then we have another showroom. Look at it. Again, very nice. Again, very test drivey as well, isn't it? You know, they've got that vibe to it. And the overpriced old cars and ancient cars and second-hand cars. Lovely detail on the car models though. I love the way they're produced. The lighting, the look, the feel on the cars. Less so the background in many respects, but the cars themselves lovingly produced and in many ways future-proofed, because as we move forward, even to PlayStation 6 and beyond, and everything becomes, you know, 4K and ray-traced everything and worlds and more physics and data. When you've got those original car models or high-spec LODs, hopefully we can carry those further, providing licensing allows. That's always going to be an issue. And of course, seeing Daytona return here as well, looking really nice. On to Trial Mountain. Some of the rock, something about it doesn't feel entirely right for me, and I can't entirely put my finger on it, but I will look at it in more detail. High Speed Ring returns, a track we all know and love. Good to see it returning. There are many Gran Turismo tracks though that we don't see in this video that I was slightly disappointed we didn't see. I wanted to see more tracks. It's good that these old tracks, these are in Gran Turismo Sport and they've had a once over. I wanted to see all of the original Gran Turismo tracks back, and if anything, I wanted the focus in this video to be focused more on some of the original Gran Turismo tracks rather than the tracks that have been in GT Sport. However, one of the highlights is weather, and again, seeing the weather, how the weather works. Rain on the windscreen, I mean, quite frankly, that's rubbish, isn't it? The spray's coming up and there's nothing there. Doesn't even need his windscreen wipers on. But anyway, we'll move on. Now we're in another car, and look at that background there, nice and detailed. It looks like they've given it all a bit of a once over. Lighter, more detail in the distance. Nice to see. And these are already great tracks that we already know and love. We're looking at more aspects here of learning each course. Well, we've already done this, haven't we, and got all of our gold medals. Now you're going to do it all again, back onto those tracks you know, and getting your medals and beating your friends. It might actually mean something to beat your friends again on that. I think a lot of us do it as a bit of a grindy thing to earn some cash, just to buy the new car for this week's GT Sport competition. Dragster mode. I've done a bit of dragster racing with a 6 times world champion in dragster racing. He took me out years ago and we had a good time. All about reaction times and optimizing those gear changes. They also use that on driver training systems and testing your mind in terms of impulses in your mind and optimum times to change gear. We were just looking at drifting there as well. The car looked fabulous in drifting. Really nice. Drifters are going to love that. It's great for those two communities. Then we see split screen mode. Going to be interesting to see how this works on the standard PlayStation. But again, you know, we are looking at, if you think about GT Sport ran well on the standard PlayStation. That's what I've been using on GT Sport and all of my races over the years. I've not had a chance to properly run it really on the PS5. Interesting to see they've got split screen mode running. I'm assuming that this is PS5 footage, so it'll be interesting to see how it compares to, you know, the standard PlayStation. I think that's going to be quite challenging to see what the reduction is in graphics. And we're looking at some various racing action here as well. Some improvements to foliage throughout, of course, on the trial mountain circuit. And you can see that racing round. We'll fade the sound in and out where there's issues. And of course a bit of braking into the Senna S at Brazil as well. Quite low in the cockpit there. That's not an ideal cockpit position at all. I'll be moving that. And of course, have they added the new cockpit cams? Well, it certainly doesn't look like it. It's just GT Sport, and they haven't listened to a single word we've had to say. Thanks for that. So, Trial Mountain then. A course many of us loved from the original. One of many courses we loved and expected to see in Gran Turismo Sport, and was disappointed not to see some of these original tracks. There seems to be a total focus on the FIA and the real life tracks, and disregarding everything that is the heritage of Gran Turismo. We're focused on the heritage of cars, but we've forgotten about the heritage of the Gran Turismo tracks. It's good to see some of those return. A look at ray tracing, of course. Lovely, look at that detail there. I love a good bit of texture work and a good bit of ray tracing, and it's really nice on every single aspect of the car, especially these classic cars. I know the commentator in the background goes on about reflections and lighting. It's all a bit cringe, honestly, listening to that. I just think it looks nice. I don't necessarily think it's anything else. It's getting the textures right. I'd love to see a comparison of with and without in terms of PS4 to PS5, and really how it's going to look on the PS5. I'm sure it will look lovely. Time and weather simulation. Here we go then, looking around. Here we are, beautiful. We're going to look at a bit of weather, see how it comes together. Something that we live by in the UK every day. What's the weather going to be like today? And here it is, slightly overcast at Spa. It's going to be a bit windy, it's a bit chilly. Make sure you wrap up warm and get some warm food, you know, hot dog, some chips, stay cozy, nice cup of tea or coffee. And we see the transition changes. Lovely clouds, they've got that nice hanging fluffy nature to them. Whatever technology they're using, often voxel technology. This is a lovely sky here. I do like that sunset. It's nice to see. It would be nice to see some of this in motion as well. How the sky changes as they're showing, how those clouds come and go, what different weather conditions, whether we see repeating weather conditions, whether it gets a bit samey or whether it really is something natural and unusual in it. The star system isn't necessarily completely unusual. We've heard about that before. Obviously the sun system is where it needs to be, otherwise the course just wouldn't look right at different times of day. And of course, you know, if you want to, with your PSVR 2, I'm sure you'll be able to look into space and enjoy a little bit of astronomy now that we can't really see the stars because there's too many Starlink satellites in the way. But there we are. That's lovely. That's all the stars that you can't see due to light pollution being in the way. And if there wasn't any light pollution, you might see the stars like that we just don't see anymore. It's a real shame, actually. As it was when I was young, you had to go into the country in the middle of nowhere to see stars like that. In London, it's just been a ball of light filling up the sky. So on to the weather then, and again track rubbering in, or we don't really see track rubbering in, we're just talking about weather here. No major changes. The lighting changes, the spray's coming out from the car. We're not seeing water washing out from the car. We're not seeing lines left by the wheels in terms of pushing the water or anything like that. We do when we're racing. We don't in this replay cam. So all those cars are driving and there's no dry line forming yet. They have to really speed up, and then it seems to appear quite suddenly. They talk about water gathering, which will always gather in the same places on the track. So there's somewhat an animation process in terms of how that water is going to work. And as it dries, suddenly you see there's an animated dry line there rather than a physics dry line appearing in a way. It's very difficult to understand that at this stage because we didn't see the water being pushed. Now I mentioned you don't see the water coming out from the tyres, but you do in game. So you're seeing the lines there of the waters coming out, the splash, which you didn't see necessarily so much in the replay. Again, the water on the visor is almost non-existent. And again, you don't really need your windscreen wipers. Let's take a look there. I mean, it's just old school spray there. There's no actual water droplets or anything like that appearing on the screen. There's no water gathering, any other particle effects or details. As I mentioned before, the windscreen is somewhat disappointing there. Replay modes are always lovely because Gran Turismo are the master of replay modes, and I can tell game developers this all the time. A good replay is absolutely key. Watching your race back afterwards, making you feel like a badass after you've been driving around, seeing yourself hitting a few curbs, hitting a few apexes, going wide on the corners and making corrections. It's always good to see the body language of the car, and looks good there. In terms of spray, we're seeing a lot of light spray. We're not seeing that heavy blinding spray though that you normally see in the rain, and that's something we haven't seen yet. It's something that you see at the start of a race when drivers can't see anywhere. We haven't seen that in anything we've seen yet. Now looking at the music replay, which of course they're saying it dynamically generates, depending on the music that you're playing. This is a very unusual presentation. I found it completely pointless. We have these new cameras. How can I reference it? How do I know what it's like with different types of music? When you looked at Gran Turismo 3 had an amazing replay mode. It had funky coloured light modes and everything else. I thought, wow, we're going to see some cool stuff. We might see stuff happening to the music in some way, even some colours, some unusual views. Instead, we just have music going around with the car. There's no reference to how the cameras change depending on the type of music. We have no base of reference. So it's just a replay mode with music. There really isn't any more to it than that. Couldn't really tell the point in this whole presentation. Doesn't matter to me. Utterly meaningless. Much preferred the replays from Gran Turismo 3. They had a bit of style to them. Bit of something. And we're looking at another track from Gran Turismo Sport. Why not use this mode on one of the new tracks? Show something off, something more exciting in this presentation rather than a track we've all seen for the last 5 years. We wanted to see something new from the new Gran Turismo game, but it does show off the shiny cars, and that's something. But the replay music mode, I thought this was just a pointless part of the presentation. I don't know why it went on so long. No point of reference. Not even worth continuing on. But the car does look lovely. And I guess it's more just a bit of jolly music with a car driving around there. Which I may mute the music in case I have a problem with YouTube. But if I don't, you'll hear it bumbling away in the background. On to physics then. They do lots of subtle physics chat here. The physics were always, I thought, pretty good on Gran Turismo. In terms of console racing, they do a good job with it. Nobody's got physics right anywhere. Every sim has its own nuances in terms of its approach to physics. Some are better than others. But Gran Turismo, I think they've put some nice elements there. It'll be interesting to see how the airflow systems that they're talking about really do affect the car. I mean, all of this to me is lovely, but it's meaningless. Any racing game can show you their physics flow system like that. How it all works when it's actually running is another thing entirely. It's always an ongoing process. All of that data you're seeing is in many racing games. In fact, a lot of data in terms of physics and the way the tyres work is actually in arcade games. Many of you, that's why in a way, I say to people, when you're watching a game like Drive Club, which you say isn't as realistic in its own way, something like that. There's loads of physics data going on in there. There's very complex models, and even in Grid, something like that, you'll see complex physics models to get it just right, to balance everything, to make it easy for players. Good to see the body roll, and obviously if you're using a control pad, which is what they're talking about now, the new DualShock controller with the resistance on the triggers feels great. It will add a lot to the driving experience and tactile feel, especially with your tyres and brakes and getting them up to temperature, feeling that bite of grip on the tarmac, which is something you feel with a wheel, but less so, well, up until recently impossible with a standard controller. On to 3D audio. Again, this is a great thing to have. I'm looking forward to testing this on my PlayStation headphones. But on a demo for the event of the night, it seemed quite strange because a lot of people are watching whether it's on their phones or their laptops or their PCs. A lot of people don't have 3D audio capability, so it's like, here's a bit of 3D audio through your mono speaker. You know, it's a note to have, but it's not something you can demo. And a good example of this is VR. I can say, here's a clip of VR. It's amazing in VR. But unless you're actually trying the VR headset, it's very hard to gauge it. And with 3D audio, you will hear stereo on your system, but really you need a good surround sound system or 3D headphones to really get the most from this experience. But I'm sure it will be great. And anything like this is a good addition, don't get me wrong. But in terms of demoing it, it seemed to be quite an unusual one to demo. You'll just hear cars just going by, you know, in terms of your speakers. But it's good to know that you have a bit of surround sound in your game. So surround sound there, and stereo, which most of us always had anyway, so we know there's a car there on your side there or thereabouts. And again, there we see a bit more rain. There's a few more droplets on the windscreen there, moving up the screens. Better, but still not changing depending on the amount of spray. So the amount of spray in front of you seems to have no effect as to the animation of the droplets on the windscreen. That's a bit disappointing. I'd have liked to have seen more work on that area, because we spend a lot of time actually in the car rather than looking at the cars as well, as we see a bit of racing round with more audio action. Tuning and car customization. Here we go then. This is what Gran Turismo is all about. It's all about taking your car, loving that car, and enjoying your life with it. You know, every aspect of the journey, building that car and taking it from the bottom rung of the ladder all the way to the top. That's really where Gran Turismo shines. And this is, for me, the most exciting mode of taking that car and just playing the one-player mode. I don't want to tune cars online. I'll be playing this mode offline. I'm not saying there's a carb or anything like that, but generally when it comes to building my car, racing my car, tuning it, that'll do that online. I'm not going to be an online tuner. Tuning is not my thing. I'm much more of I like to race, but I've never been a tuning guy. Then we see another strange comparison. Again, pointless. Here is the Beetle with a normal engine and normal components, and here it is with more components. It goes faster. Well, there you go. Who would have thought it, viewers? Who would have thought that your car would go quicker with minor upgrade? Well, I say quite major upgrades in terms of performance, because we're not just seeing going faster. We're seeing better braking, better cornering, better everything. So there we are. That's a normal car, and that's a tuned car. Let's just look at that for a moment, take it in. So there you have it. If you put bigger engines in your car, you go quicker. So I bet you didn't know that. Now you do. And then we go on to other mods as well. Big wang on the back if you want downforce to the rear, and you're really into that stuff. Or you want just to not downforce, but all around downforce and go a bit slower. You can put a nice fat body kit on your car and bounce your way around the courses as well. And you've got lots of different colour schemes and details to the car. I mean, all of this is going to be exhaustive. The menus are really nice. I like painting on Gran Turismo, so it's nice to see that you can actually import your car paints. And I think all of that's going to look even nicer with the ray traced elements as well. I like the little fitting body screens there. Really nice. So that's going to be good for your drifting fans and your Need for Speed fans. They're going to be all over that, aren't they? They're going to be making big wangs on the car and, you know, making it look lovely. You can now put paint on the windows. That's nice as well. Look at that. I quite like that. I think that's a nice little addition. And it looks great on the rally track. Again, we're not seeing a new rally track. We're seeing an old track. That's a shame. Washing your car. You know, I remember it being more of a spinny, sparkly thing. I feel it, in a way, I kind of feel like we've missed the video gaming style a bit, where we could have had like magic and explosions and stars and God knows what else during the washing the car bit. I think it'd be nice to occasionally have something that harks back to the old Gran Turismo vibe. I feel it, you know, is what it is though, but I would like to have seen something more pizzazzy, more Gran Turismo-y in that way, because it was just a fun thing, silly thing on the original game. Look, my car's clean again, lovely, it's nice and shiny. Scapes, Gran Turismo. Kazunori loves Scapes. He loves taking photos of cars. Car companies love it when you take photos of their cars. That keeps them happy as well. And everybody likes nice pictures to say, look at my car. Now, again, combined with the new performance, especially of the PS5, it would be interesting to see if there are additional lighting effects, along with the ray traced elements in this, that could look really, really nice. Again, the photo mode was fantastic before, so we see the same again. So none of this really is exciting to me in terms of it's new. It's had an update, if you like, but it's an update to what we already had, which was good anyway. And now a look at more photo mode. It's nice to see the many changes and improvements that have been made to get those nice photos. As I say, it's an update and an improvement rather than something completely new mode. But I will play it. I will play on this. It's nice to see. I think so far, you know, I'll go through actually a crossover of different elements that really appeal to me, but always nice to see, especially with the car models being as detailed as they are. It's good to have, you know, all of that aspect to be able to maximize your photo mode, and your store there where you can put up your various items for other people to use. I quite like that as well. It's just a nice little thing. Download those mini paint jobs.
The showcase is a place where this content can be shared.
And there we
for
go.
other players to download.
They're just showing the showcases. Look at that drift photo. Drifters are going to love it. I mean, the fact that you can able to, you know, make your Team Orange, you know, car drifting round on, you know, various circuits is always exciting to see. So, no, nice to see various elements. You know, you know, in terms of the overall excitement, I would like to have seen more focus on the new courses. And as we talk about that, we move to a look at Trial Mountain, which is back. I remember seeing Trial Mountain. What was it? Gran Turismo 3 must have been when we saw it running at 60 FPS, and it was a huge step up from the original. Again, we're just looking at a track for the first time here. The track surface is bland. Again, just lacking detail. Why is this track here? What kind of track is it? What kind of tarmac did they use? How old is this track? What's the weather like here? The rock is all one type of grey granite now. I don't know, there's just something about it. It's more Yosemite Park, I guess. It's much brighter than it was before. Again, like you say, there's little in the way of actual tarmac feel. Is this a real road? It's got road markings on. I don't know what's going on here. And then they cut to the exterior cam view just when we're on board here, which is a shame because it would have been nice to have actually stayed on the car. AC Cobra racing around here. I had saw one of these at the London Motor Museum, which are closed down. Used to be at Hayes years ago. What a great place that was. A gem of a place. A museum not many people knew about and looked great. So it would have been nice to have stuck with this entire lap to have seen the changes. I haven't come to a change here that I'm not so. There's something about the course that feels a bit wider, that feels a bit different, and I feel that the foliage has been cut back, and I think this was one of the most exciting moments in the original game when you come out and you have the overhanging trees, and they've done away with it and just concreted it over. Basically, it's repeated lods making a tunnel. That is really disappointing, and that for me cheapens the it's like, let's save some development costs by just putting a big tunnel there and taking away one of the core defining aspects of the entire racetrack. Then we have some trees at the end, but it doesn't have the same nature to it, and we didn't even finish the lap, which is a bit of a shame. So I don't know, I just feel it's like deep forest. You know, again, there's overhanging trees, there was a narrow track, there was older tarmac. Now they've made it all big and Herman Tilt design. It's lost a bit of soul in it. Onto the high-speed ring, which had already seen quite a lot of changes in terms of trackside objects, in terms of Gran Turismo 5, and this follows a similar path. It already looked good, so seeing it back now, and with the once over in the super fast cars, super grip, and along with the original Gran Turismo music playing in the background just to give it some vibe. Round into the tunnel, nice tunnel structure as well, very futuristic as well. It reminds me of the Ferrari building at Abu Dhabi, just behind the hairpin, or what still is the hairpin, and coming around for a final lap there as well. And it's again a track we all know, a track we were expecting to see in GT Sport, wasn't it? But we didn't, because they held it back for Gran Turismo 7.
Thank you for watching.
One of the classic circuits. So yeah, I mean, we've seen Deep Forest, High Speed Ring, Trial Mountain back. I was hoping to see Grand Valley Speedway and Autumn Ring and a few others, but alas no, we're not seeing too much more at the moment. And that was it for a look at the presentation. So that was it for the Gran Turismo presentation. In terms of what it is, it feels more and more, when I see it, like sort of an add-on really to a bigger expansion add-on to Gran Turismo Sport. The HUD hasn't been changed significantly. They've added a weather system in the corner, but you know, overall it's fundamentally the same as it was in GT Sport. I would have liked some nuanced changes to it, nothing major, just a little look, maybe a font or colour, or changing the countdown to 3, 2, 1, but we won't bother with that. They've not added the driving positions. The windscreen in the rain doesn't really reflect what's actually happening in front of you, so you've got 4 cars, tons of spray, you're not seeing any difference on that. I was hoping for more focus in this presentation on new tracks or old tracks returning, which it seems like we've not really got that much to work with, and Trial Mountain quite frankly seems rushed, as does Deep Forest in many respects. They seem very rushed circuits, like quickly let's whack a couple of tracks in there, and damn, we've got to model all these trees and all this stuff, let's not do that, let's just put one big tunnel there, and that's fine, we'll just whack a repeated texture, that's sorted. The other stuff that we focused on, the music replay, irrelevant. I mean, for me, it's not like, I mean, Gran Turismo 3 had amazing replays. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's nice to see, but it filled up quite a lot of the presentation with looking at an old track on a music replay with no reference, pointless. Photo mode is returning, good. Scapes, good. But really, I was expecting a lot more focus to have been on the one player mode and the Gran Turismo journey, because for me, Gran Turismo is about license tests, which we didn't really see anything of there at all. It's about bringing classic tracks back, or even tracks like Rome, stuff like that, bringing all these tracks back that make Gran Turismo what it is. There's a lot missing from this presentation. It was quite sedate, it was quite slow, it lacked pace, it lacked energy, and it really didn't grab me in the way I was hoping it would in many respects. So the more I see of it, the more I feel it's sort of rushed in many ways, and it's a strange Gran Turismo release. We'll all be back on it soon, and no doubt playing it loads, and it will still be the best looking, best handling game, racing game of its type on console. That's no doubt about that. But it does leave me wondering sometimes whether we're going to be playing Gran Turismo 7 online and thinking, goodness me, it feels like Gran Turismo Sport with weather. and there we are. But that's it. Maybe I'm just a moany old man and I'm having a go. And really, I always remember you know, Gran Turismo is the peak. You know, we're expecting the best. They've had almost a decade of development, or pretty much a decade of development on this game. And if they haven't, what have they been doing with their time? They've only released Gran Turismo Sport in that time. You know, they've had more time than any other developer. I expect the best. And when I see things where I see room for improvement, I'm always going to point that out, because I want to see I want to see these things as I imagine they could be and can be. And there are some unusual decisions that seem to have been made here and there. But that's it from me for now. As ever, more soon. Hello viewers, well thanks for watching the video today. Do like and subscribe, it supports what we do. Do become a YouTube member. YouTube Patreon supports all of our content you see on the channel, and of course lots of gaming from retro to modern games. I love it all in terms of racing action. So click on one of the two videos just there to find out more.